Welcome to the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. On this channel, we're going to be discussing all things marrying a farmer, moving to the land, and becoming integrated with a family farming operation. Whether you're moving to the farm for the first time or whether you're moving back into a family farming operation, we discuss the ins and the outs of all of it. So let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Ultimate Farm Wife. I'm your host, Kat Williams, and today we're here with Brooke. Brooke, it's so lovely to have you here on the farm. Can you please introduce yourself, your family, and your farm?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. So my name is Brooke Watts. I grew up in Molong, Central West, New South Wales, and grew up on a family farm 10 to 15 k's out of town, which was really nice. Got to go to school in town. Growing up, I had two wonderful little sisters and absolutely adore them still to this day, but very traditional, super fine merino stud growing up. Mum and dad were doing a lot of AI programs and working in the genetic space as I was going through school, which was really cool. I have very fond memories of growing up on a farm. Went to Molong Central School K to 12 and then did a little stint away and headed off to uni to do my Bachelor of Business Management. Had a job working in administration for a corporate ag company, and then had a little hiatus once I was finishing my last year of uni and studying online, and did 12 months in underground mining as their site administrator over at North Parks on a project, which was a really cool change of scenery. And then at the end of, I think it was either 21 or 22, I came back into my family business, and it's had a lot of growth over that time. It's changed so much over the years in what our service offerings are and what that structure's like. And I guess took a lot of readjusting as I came back in to work full time alongside dad. But at the same time, it's one of the best things that I've ever done for my career. And now I get to work in a really exciting space.
Yeah, absolutely. Big difference between agriculture and mining as well. It is sometimes nice to take that break, but I'm sure there was many skills that you were able to learn from that role with North Parks Mine and be able to bring back into the family farming business. So let's start with some of the skills that were transferable. What did you find was transferable when you came back to the family farming business?
I think for me, the biggest thing was going from working in a small team to then being the only female on a crew of like 40 males on an underground project was incredibly eye-opening. I loved my time there, but really challenged me in new ways of communicating what my organization and my structure and how I was planning my ways for things that could pop up. Like with any project work, which is primarily what we're doing at Brooke now, my family company, it had a lot of times where you have to adapt and pivot. And that's something that dad and I always say to each other is, okay, what's next? How are we going to pivot? What's this readjustment look like? And putting some structure into place as well, and a bit of project management. And since I've come back, we're not working in traditional farming as we once were, 15, 20 years ago. As much as I loved that, we've created a company that allows us to deliver training and consultancy to growers across New South Wales and now Australia-wide. So for me, that project work really set the foundations to come back into the family company and give it a bit of structure. And up until I came back, dad was absolutely thriving and mum was there to support him throughout the whole journey, and she's been the backbone of the structure and the organization. But it was really nice to come back in and implement some systems and processes and actually look at what is it that we're doing, what's our mission, what's our goals, and where do we want to expand, what does that look like, what are the deliverables, and really give it some structure and direction rather than going sort of month by month or even 6 months in advance. It was looking at larger contracts, larger rollouts, and actually expanding our impact on industry in a broader sense.
Yeah, I love all of that. What a big shift and change. Let's go back to what the farm looked like in its traditional farming methods, and then explain to us what has changed now that it's not a traditional model.
Yeah, definitely. So growing up, we had two farms. So we had one between Molong and Orange, and then we had another one over between kind of Molong and Dubbo over at Larrisley, if anyone knows where that is, which was really nice. Always had a couple hundred sheep. Absolutely loved lambing time. Learned a lot about the merino industry and sheep and wool in general. Got to travel to so many different sheep shows and events with my parents, which was really nice. Got to meet so many different industry professionals, even, the hands-on skills down to like driving a tractor, sowing oats and that sort of thing, you know, cutting firewood on weekends, all that kind of stuff that I think is such a core memory of growing up on a farm. And I'm going to say 12, 15 years ago when drones first came on the scene, my dad, Ben, has such an entrepreneurial spirit in the way that he can just see things and sense things in the next big thing before anyone else does, which I think is the true spirit of an entrepreneur, is that you've got the mind even 2 to 5 years ahead of industry and you can kind of see the pain point, you can see the place for it. So started to shift into technology, and it was more about he was using technology to overcome pain points on farm for him. But as we're branching out to become a service provider and a contractor, we're only a small team. We're just a family who's having a go and doing the things that we enjoy and fill the cup up. But we can't service everybody as a small team. So it was more about how can we give growers the skills that they need. So as he started to slowly destock in the 2019 drought, we invested more into technology, invested more into writing training programs to help growers. At the time, we were delivering drone training plus ultrasonography training as well for sheep and cattle, because again, it was one of those side hustles that Dad was doing, and us girls were lucky enough to go and help and learn how to scan sheep and cattle and help out a few clients. But we couldn't keep up with demand, so it was more so how do we give growers the skills to do this themselves, and you know, then they've got technology available when they need it. They're not waiting for a contractor. So much cheaper. The return on investment to just invest in your own technology, if you've got an operation of scale that can justify that, is so worth it. And so we started doing that, and just more and more over the years have lent into the drones in ag space. Now we've trained over 1,000 growers across New South Wales. Absolutely incredible, and get to utilize ag skilled funding, so it's fee free for eligible participants, which is really nice as well. So I've been doing that, but I mean, in amongst that, you've got all of like the program design and development, marketing it to growers, actually hitting the road. We're expanding our team of contractors that we're training alongside the road on Ben, alongside the road with Ben, I should say. And that took a lot of structure and organization. And then in amongst that, Dad started working in the pest animal space, investing in thermal drones, long range drones, and now he's got some that are subauditable and has all of his night approvals, etc. So there's a few branches and elements to our business. Some is training, some of it's consultancy, and some of it's as a service provider. And he's just got back from 6 weeks over in WA, Northern Territory and Queensland as a service provider for pest animal mapping. And a lot of it that I think people forget about is the R&D space. Before we actually bring a product to market or a service, there is years of R&D on farm for us, and trust me, it has its fair share of fails and hiccups in technology like anything. But I think we're really lucky that we have the background as traditional merino growers to understand what some of those pain points are, and you know, working in with the season, etc. All of those changes and challenges that growers are facing means that now that we've sort of shifted into a training provider and in the consultancy space and service provider, that we do have that understanding. And coming back in and managing these projects alongside my parents, I'm very lucky that they gave me a little bit of free reign of, you know, if you get other contracts on your own, you can do that. So I've been kind of branched out, and I've got business with Brooke, which started as a personal brand, but I still get to operate within my family company, but manage my own clients as well. And some of that looks like business branding. Most of my clients, you know, I've had maybe, I'm going to say 5 to 10 that are just young contractors who say, oh, I want to go out and start preg testing, or I'm a fencing contractor, or I just want to go and operate some machinery, but I've got my own ABN, but I'm not reaching clients. What do I do? And, you know, just helping them set up a social media presence and a logo and a basic website or something like that, or something to pop on some caps, etc., which is really nice. So I still get my creative outlet that I like as well. And then somewhere in there, in case you can't tell, I got gift of the gab and I can talk all day long. So picked up a few keynote speaking gigs as well, which is really nice. So yeah, have a lot of flexibility in what I do, but it's really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we've got more of an idea on what it is, like where the business has come from and what it is now and your role in that, tell us a little bit about the personal side behind the business. So quite often when we're hearing about, you know, siblings, or in your case, the daughter coming back on farm, a lot of people struggle with that dynamic between professionalism in the family farming business, but also being treated as an adult. Some talk about, well, I'm still treated like a kid and I'm not given the responsibility, which doesn't sound like the experience you've had. But can you tell us a little bit more about that dynamic? Did it shift? How did it shift?
Definitely. When I first came back, I'd finished my contract at North Parks and I was having so many changes in my personal life. And I thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And when I first went back, it was just a coincidence that mum and dad were at the point of expanding and I had the skills and was looking to kind of take the next step within my career. And when I came back, I moved back into their place on the homestead initially. And I think I lasted maybe a month, 2 months. And I said, no, can't do this. We cannot work together full time and live together full time. That's not for me. I knew I wanted to work for them. They're my biggest business mentors. I look up to them so much. They're my idols and I've learned so much from them. So for me personally, it was just about putting those boundaries in place so that it wasn't following us everywhere. For anyone who works in family business, you'd understand, when you're sitting having Sunday dinner, catching up as a family, instinctively it just turns into, oh, what's on for this week? Oh, did you do that? Did you invoice that? Oh, I got up to here on this. Or can you order parts for the ute? Or I need help dropping the bike in for a service this week. That's what instinct is. So for us, it was a really conscious effort, and I'd ended up moving into a little granny flat at the end of machinery shed with some family friends down the road. It wasn't anything flash by any means, but it did the job for me. And we were traveling on the road so much for work at the time that dad and I were away for weeks of the month. I was only home a few nights. So it worked really well that then when we did come back, I had my own space and I could go, I'm going home and then, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock and drive to work. And it just separated the two. So it wasn't following us everywhere. So that was the big kind of first step for us that I think helped. And then going forwards, once I'd kind of found my feet back within Browker and we knew, okay, this is something we're going to do long term. There is a place for me. And our rule was always, well, if there's contracts that'll cover my wage, that's great. But if there's not, I don't have a position. And we had to have some of those conversations of, I'm still an employee. If I wasn't fitting the mold and I didn't work within the team, there wasn't going to be a place for me there. It wasn't anything that they did as a favor for me as such. It was in the beginning and it was a little bit of a trial to see where's this going to go, what's this look like. And I've had comments from people over the years, like anyone does, I think, that works in family business of, oh my goodness, you just work for mummy and daddy, this and that, it must be easy. It is one of the most challenging dynamics I think you can have. And I always joke about it with my dad, Ben, is that there's some conversations we have where I have to go, no, just you're in your boss mind. You're my boss today and I am your employee. But then at the same time, there's comments we make to each other that I probably would never say to another employer, but I can say because he's my dad. But at the same time, you probably wouldn't say to your dad either. You kind of get these blurred lines in the middle, and that's a two-way street as well. So once I'd actually bought my house in town and was traveling to work for mum and dad, I think we got a lot more clarity on what that relationship looked like. And we're very conscious, particularly because we have two other girls in the family. So Alyssa and Caitlin don't work within the company. Alyssa did a stint back with us in between a few jobs for, I'm going to say 3 months or something. And she was pretty honest and said, this is not for me. I cannot work with family. She wanted to spread her wings and we're so proud of her for that. And Caitlin's now working as a scientist. So it was really interesting because I would not notice that we were even doing it because instinctively I'm so much like my father. I live and breathe work. I'm a workaholic. I love it. But we would sit down for dinner with the girls and there'd be all 5 of us and Alyssa and Caitlin would be like, guys, we're not here to chat about work. Let's just have a conversation as a family. So I think there was a lot of readjusting to that and trying to set some work hours as well and what that looked like and days of the week that we were going to work. And if we were doing big weeks on the road and, if we've been on the road for 3 weeks, what that looks like when we come back so that we could both have some time apart. You're going to work on this project. I'm going to work on this project and have a little bit of breathing room and space, which was really good. But at the same time, it's constantly an adjustment. We're always learning new things about each other. We all have little triggers that set us off. There's some really, really great days, which is the majority of them. And then there's other days where working in a family business can just be awfully frustrating when you've got a clash of personalities and you're trying to find your place and kind of set yourself up on your own path. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You've brought up a lot of things that we can unpack from that. So we're going to go backwards a little bit. So the feeling of uncertainty, did you have that at any point when you were trying to work out, is there a place for me? Are we going to make enough in this project to keep me on, to have me paid? Where's my security in this? Like, how do you change your mindset? How did you deal with feelings like that?
Yeah, it was a challenge, but at the same time, I think I'm very stubborn and very driven. And when we were working on contracts that had a place that only dad could deliver, so delivering training with an RTO, I don't have my TAE, so dad's our trainer, and he has to do the training. So I didn't have the capability to take that on completely and do it as my own. So I was working alongside dad. But at the same time, he'd done it for so many years on his own that we had to have those conversations of what benefit am I actually bringing to the table and looking at those skills. So for me, it was working in the marketing space and connecting with communities so that we could roll them out in a bigger scale and what that looks like when we're actually there with growers and, capturing success stories and delivering case studies and proof of concept so that the uptake to change and adapting to technology was greater, so that dad could deliver training to more people, but he's so time poor with all the projects and work that he's got going on that there was that little space for me, but it didn't have to be. There wasn't necessarily, he could have kept pottering along on his own, all would have been sweet in the world, but without me scaling it to be bigger, I wouldn't have had a place within the operation, if that makes sense. So that was challenging in itself, particularly I think the first 6 months when I'd had a break from the family company. And, I wouldn't say I ever started working for them officially at any age. When you grow up on a family farm, I think it's just like, it's what you do, everything. But in the few years that I'd had away at uni and working as in administration and over at the mines, etc., there'd been such a shift and I didn't have the depth of knowledge and I felt quite disconnected from industry. So coming back, I think the first 6 months, that was my biggest challenge, was putting myself out there and connecting with growers and going to events and understanding what key community groups I could work with in my role as operations manager to really hit the mark so that dad could continue rolling it out on a bigger scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you would say a mind shift change, like you needed to change into a different mind shift where you were taking sort of you personally out of it and putting it more like in a professional mannerism of this is what needs to work, let's make it work, rather than worrying about, is this space going to still be here in 6-12 months time?
Yeah, I think because I was so young and had the freedom to sort of make that choice, I was also open to the fact that if this doesn't work, I'm still employable. I still had time away. It's not like this is the only thing I've done. I've got a bachelor's degree under my belt. I've got years of experience. I've got connections. And worst case scenario, if it's a flop, I come out the other side with some more skills in project management and some new connections. I'll find my place. I'm pretty resilient. I'll get back on my feet eventually. So I think for me, particularly, I mean, I studied a Bachelor of Business Management. So the numbers side for me was really important of, okay, if this is what the contract is, this is what my wage is, how are we going to make that work? How are we going to continue to scale? And we'd had those conscious conversations of, we're in a growth phase. So there was no point me coming back and having us plateau. So when there was opportunity for growth, 100%, I'm going to support that. I'm going to push that. So, and then within there, I started getting my own connections and my own clients and keynote speaking and all the other things that came with it. So yeah, I think it was a mindset thing and a bit of resilience, but also a little bit of stubbornness. And I like to prove that when I do something, I want to do it well. I don't do it in halves by any means.
I love that you said that, during that time period, you were younger, you were, had that freedom and you had the confidence in your skill set that if it didn't work out, you were still employable. And I think that is something that a lot of us can really resonate with. Like, okay, we're not actually, it doesn't matter if it works, doesn't work out. we're still employable, we've still got a skill set, we can still contribute in other areas. And I love that you didn't give up in trying to find your place within those programs and within the farm and just adjust with how it went. Now, you also mentioned previously in the interview that, quite a lot of people will come up and be like, oh, you just work for mum and dad. Like, I have heard that time and time again, and I know people in our audience have. And I think it's because there's that disconnect between people understanding what a family farming business is and our role within our business, where heritage and legacy intersects with the fashion world. Homestead Road is founded by fifth-generation wool producer Bridget Brooks, built on the values of versatility, quality, durability, and sustainability. Homestead Road's mission is to educate, connect, and celebrate rural women by creating timeless, modern, and effortless wool pieces that speak to the sensibility and sophistication of women on the land. After having her 4 children, Bridget learnt how important clothing and fashion can make you feel after your body and identity changes. Bridget found a gap in the merino activewear market, as many of the other pieces already on the market were either very technical or pretty plain, which is not what her pieces are about. They are effortless and modern athleisure pieces that can be taken from day to night, task to task, as is the busy life of multitasker rural women. Bridget has given the absolutely fabulous listeners and the ultimate farm wife listeners a 40% discount code. Thank you so much, Bridget. That code is Katja40, so Katja, Katja 40, and that expires on the 31st of October 2025. So log on to the website, which is in the show notes below, and get yourself some Homestead Road pieces that will be part of your wardrobe for years to come using the discount code. So do you have a certain thing that you say to people when they mention that?
Yeah, I think it depends on the mindset and who it's with. And I've had occasions where I've had been at events or things and they just say, I want to speak to, whoever's managing this project and this and that. And I'll go, oh yeah, no worries, that's me. And they're like, no, the boss. I'm like, yeah, I'm managing this project as well. I'm just as capable, if not probably have a stronger, deeper understanding of what's going on and can actually help you. But at the same time, I've had people that go, oh, you just work for your parents. And the first thing I say back to them is, I'm an employee. They could sack me if they wanted to, and they haven't yet. So I must be doing a pretty good job. And I know that in my case, it was coincidence that the timing lined up when I came back into the family company. And, we've made a lot of changes over the years. And in more recent months, I've started to decrease my workload with them because I've started enjoying other areas. And I think that's so fine as long as you're transparent and you talk about that together. But I think I worked really hard to create my own network of people. My parents fall within their own network and they've worked their asses off for years to get where they are, and I'm so incredibly proud of them. But at the same time, I've got my own, committees and community groups that I work with, and my own following of people that I connect with and mentors that I reach out to that don't have any relation to my parents. And that was really important because I never tried to be my parents' daughter, 100%. But at the same time, when people would say to me, oh, you're Ben's daughter at events or functions, and I'm not just Ben's daughter, I'm also Brooke, and I am my own personality, and I'm working really hard to make a name for myself in industry. And I think, like I said before, just me being stubborn, but the more of those comments that you cop, I think it adds a bit of fire into your belly to actually become your own person and set that up and see what that looks like. And you're allowed to have your own avenues outside of the family business, and whether it's in traditional farming and you want to go out contracting on your own on the side, or start looking at integrating something else or making suggestions, or if you're in a pretty flexible company like I am, what that looks like. But you're allowed to still have your own passions, and it doesn't necessarily have to line up to a T of that of your parents or your siblings or your grandparents or whoever you're working with. I think it's really important to still understand what your purpose is and what your place is, because at the end of the day, most of us want to leave a legacy. And what does that look like? I'd rather it be something that I've crafted on my own than something that just came down through generations. I'm pretty lucky. I mean, it adds to it and certainly provides me with a lot of benefit. But at the end of the day, I'm still my own person. I'm still proud to be Brooke Watts, not just Ben's daughter, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely. So you spoke about communicating changes. If something does change or you do come up with another concept or program that you do want to roll out, something else that you can manage and incorporate because you're following what you're enjoying, which I think is really, really important, and adapting as you go. How do you approach communicating that with mum and dad? And how do you work out, okay, how is that going to fit into everything that we have planned over the next 6-12 months? What does that rollout look like?
I've got a pretty good example of that one. So early 2024, maybe end of 2023, actually, I was going to a lot of networking events. And at the time, we were managing a statewide education program, which was really rewarding. And I had an idea of, we need to be having more conversations with students in schools about careers in ag and what avenues are available, and that you don't need to take a traditional path out of school, all of the different requirements for different jobs, but more so identifying, okay, if you enjoy this subject, you might suit job XYZ, basically. But a big part of that as well is the cultural conversations and where do I fit into a workplace, what can I tolerate, what not, etc. To cut to the chase, I met the wonderful Jessica Hickman, and she was founder of Bullyology and an author of The Upstanding Leader. And she was specializing in cultural conversations. And I thought, that's something that I don't have the experience in, but something that could be a really cool space. So we started to collaborate on a project and just started having those initial discussions of what would this look like. We've got pretty common goals. This is what I'm specializing in. This is what you're specializing in. And then I was like, okay, I need to take this to mum and dad. Like, it sounds wild and wacky. It's in my brain, but I'm a dreamer. I'm a doer. Like, it's going to happen, but I don't know how, because at the time we were so under the pump with work anyways. And when I initially mentioned it to them, they were very supportive, but at the end of the day, you're still a business. You still have outputs that you need to reach. And there needs to be some sort of ROI for the time that you're putting in, basically. So the way that we did it, that just works for us, I mean, everybody's different, is I've always worked off a flex sheet so that I wasn't working a standard, 9 to 5 or anything like that. But if we were pumping out a big few months, that sometimes there would be flexibility if needed down the track. So we started separating it. And for anyone who uses, Xero, Work for Max or anything like that, you can set up your different job codes and different projects and that sort of thing. So you can start to see where your time is actually going. So for me, it was really important that mum and dad had said yes to this project. They said, look, see where it goes. And like any initial project, there's a lot of time, as you know, that you put in that's not paid. You're just doing it for the sake of loving it and trusting the process. So it was about tracking what that looked like and what it could possibly and potentially turn out to be in the future. So, we put together our project plan and our agreement to be working with each other, and we looked over everything, and I had mum and dad look over it as well. And then suddenly we were launching to, 1,000 students, I think it was 7 months later, which was really cool. So I think the most important thing for me was understanding that for a while, and in Browker we call them passion projects. I don't know about anybody else, but I've got a fair few of them, is just something that you're doing because you're passionate about it, but potentially turns into a paying project down the track. So we were very transparent with each other, and mum and dad trusted me with it, but I had to show them how much time I was putting into this as well, if that makes sense. And a lot of it, I'm not going to say, we get paid from the get-go for every contract that we land or project that we create. It's not like that. Anyone in small business will understand that. It was about understanding that I'd still do, a 40, 50, 60, 70-hour week if we're on the road, but I'd still sit down of an evening and commit 2 hours to this project because I believed in the Up Down project, and I still do to this day. It sits there in the background for us to pick up and take when we're ready to. So it was about understanding how much time I put into it. And then as we were scaling and as we could potentially start to make an income from something, what that looks like and where we could get a subcontractor in. So if I was still working on a project that needed my time, if I was going to take time off to go and work on my own passion project baby, have I lined up another subby to come in and help dad on the road? And, at the time we had a good friend of mine, Beth Simmons, working for us, and she was subcontracting to us to go and deliver ultrasonography training with dad if I couldn't be there, for example. So a lot of it was about being adaptable, but I think the beauty of the company that we've set up is that we can bring in contractors and give other young people a go if I happen to pick up something and run with it, which God bless my parents, they know that I have a habit of doing.
Absolutely. You have so much going on at the moment, Brooke. Lots of passion projects, lots of projects that people can only dream of actually getting to the finish line and being able to put out into the world like you are doing. So let's talk about balance. So people always ask me about life balance, like work-life balance in a family farming business. How do you manage that? Like, I don't necessarily think that you need to be assigning, 6 hours to business and 6 hours to family. How do you make sure that you are still getting those personal connections with your friends, with your family, and having those conversations over the dinner table where your other sisters and your mum can participate in and feel heard and seen and involved?
I don't know that I'm the best person to talk about balance, but I'll give it a go. I mean, I always stand by the quote, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. And I think the biggest thing that works for me is really breaking down my calendar. I swear by my calendar. Anyone who looks at it probably has a heart attack at how much is jam-packed in there, and it's color-coded. And, I've got yellow for when I'm away, red for when I'm in the office. And, I've got personal things a different color and appointments, etc. And I think for me, I break every task down into if it's a deep work task or if it's a quick win. And there's some things, you can have a to-do list that's got 50 billion things written on it, but sometimes some of them only take you 2 minutes. And I guarantee you, if you sit on that for a week and then you go to do it, you go, oh my goodness, why was I procrastinating that? Like, that was actually a quick win. But also understanding when you're most productive. For some of us, that's early in the morning, waking up at 5 a.m. and just smashing it out and getting as much done and then sort of meandering the rest of the day. For some people, they're a night owl and it means poking through things in the day. But if you get, 2 hours to yourself in the evening to do your admin and catch up on your invoicing, maybe that's when you're most productive. But for me, it was, and then you throw in travel, which really just threw a spanner in the works when you're on the road with service with Telstra, etc. But it was a big thing for me to kind of separate and work out what has to be done and what do I want to be done, particularly when you're as stubborn as me. You want everything to be done in an instant. And it's probably one of my most toxic traits as a business owner and just a young leader, is that I always want to do everything right now. And I want to just, if I start something like, oh, I could sit here. Like at the moment, I've been working on a new website for business with Brooke and keep sitting there going, no, I'll just finish it tonight. Like I'll just pull it all night. And I'm like, no, actually, that's not practical at all. It's not going to work. You need to look at it with fresh eyes. So yeah, finding spare time. I think everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, but for me, I look for spare 15-minute increments. I don't look for spare 6-hour blocks. If I was going to do that, that's March next year that's going to happen. And really consciously putting in effort. And my 2025 goal was to be around and spend time with the people that I care about more and put conscious effort into relationships and community. And it might be something as simple as, for example, the other week I was speaking at a conference in Dubbo. So I messaged a girlfriend and said, oh, I can, get up an hour earlier and you're in Dubbo. So let's just go and get a coffee before I go and speak at a conference, versus trying to find the time to, meet halfway on a weekend and do the drive, etc. So when I'm traveling, I try and integrate. If I'm in someone's area, I'll just flick them a message and say, hey, here we are. If you want to catch up, feel free to join us for dinner. And a good tip that I got from someone as well was, if someone crosses your mind, just send them a message. I think that's been a big one for me, particularly with friends that I don't see much. And a lot of my friends are long distance. Is just sending them a message and say, hey, just checking in, thinking of you. Love to chat when you have time. One of my good girlfriends, Celia, she works up in Queensland. I'm obviously in New South Wales. So we usually just talk on the phone once a week. And, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours, but it's something that we can do as we're, sitting down, smashing out some emails or as you're driving and that sort of thing. So I think you make time for the things that you care about. And for my family, we've got a cabin out at Muckawall Dam. So for us, that's our place that we go and don't talk about work, because when we're at the homestead having family dinner, those conversations naturally arise. And we've set up an office building, but mum's office is still in the house for everything that she does. And then dad and I have our office outside next to like a depot shed type thing for storage. So the lines can get a little bit blurred there. So for us, it was about having a space that you consciously go, and we don't do any work talk out there. I think you probably, it feels illegal. It was just like an unwritten rule that we have, is that you just don't talk about work out there. That's just where we go to switch off, which is really nice. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of just make time for the things you care about and understand your work style as well, and when you do work best.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love all of that. I think that's a great balance. I think they're great tips to be able to incorporate. I also just send people messages when I think of them. I'll quite often, if I give them a call and they don't pick up, I'll leave a voicemail and say, hey, you don't have to call me back. I'm just checking in. I just want to say hi because I was thinking about you. Particularly if we're running out of, service, because a lot of the roads that we travel don't always have full service. So it's always like, if I drop out, you don't have to call me back. I just wanted to say I was thinking of you. So I absolutely love those little 1%ers that you're doing all the time to try and create that balance, particularly when you're traveling. Yep, come and join us for dinner. Absolutely love that. When you were talking about, doing those small increments of 10, 15 minutes, that's part of what I teach in my Know Your Timings on Farm course. So if anyone's interested in finding out more about that course, we are rolling out several next year for 2026. The best place to get the information for that is going to be on the newsletter. So in the show notes below, click on the link and sign up for that. So what we're doing in that session is we look at the family farm for a 12-month period. We break it down into seasons, and then we break it down even further all the way down into tasks, so that we can work out how long is that task going to find. So we're not going into that, what I call glitch mode, when it's like, oh, do I do this? Do I do that? I'm not getting, or when you get upset because, your job list just isn't getting done because you've put too much on your plate for that day as well. You haven't found those moments of time which are actually going to make it work. So absolutely love that. Brooke, let's turn the conversation around. We're going to talk about succession planning and the future of the farm and the business, particularly because you've got 2 other siblings who are not involved in the business with you and your dad. So what does that look like for the future for them and the farm?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of conversations over the last few years of what that does look like. When I first came back, we were in a massive growth phase, which was exciting. And I think we rolled that out pretty successfully. And now we're reaching the stage that, my parents have reached their 50s, and we're working out what happens next. What does that look like? What do they want? And every time we have the discussion of, all right, maybe it's time to semi-retire, they go, nah, let's knuckle down. We've got another good 5 years in us. And I admire that about them. And there's a lot of discussion about what happens going forwards. And I'm very lucky that my family is very close knit. My sisters are some of my closest friends as well. So we do have pretty open and transparent conversations. And we've shifted away from traditional farming. So we don't have any livestock of our own that we need to worry about in that transition period, which for us works really well. But I understand that's certainly a pretty unique scenario to still have a farm but not actually be managing livestock. And we've got some family friends who are just on both of our properties, which is really nice. So we still get to enjoy the lifestyle and give them a hand, but it's no pressure on us, which is really nice. So we have a lot of discussions about what it looks like for Brooke going forwards. And, Alyssa and Caitlin aren't in the company as hands-on. They still obviously get to have a say, and our family values play a very, very big role in our business values as well, in what we deliver and how we connect with industry and support others. So I think going forwards, down the track eventually, whether or not it's that we sell the company or we sell our assets, or if it's something that we transform and I completely take over and start running my business with Brooke stuff and lean into that more full time, we don't know what that looks like. But at the same time, I enjoy the flexibility that I have now, wearing so many different hats, and it means that I do have the capacity to give back into communities, whether that's through running, Rural Women's Day or something like that. I do have capacity for that now, versus if I was to take on more of a role in ownership and taking on more of Dad's tasks and contracts, I probably wouldn't have as much capacity. So I think it's a lot of, for now, I think we're kind of head down, bum up for the next, I'm going to say 5 years. And then after that, we'll see. We're pretty lucky in owning properties. We chat about what that looks like as mum and dad downsize, whether or not we turn them into Airbnbs, or if it's something that us girls want to step back into. And my younger sister, she's a senior station hand over at Canowindra and absolutely lives and breathes farming. And, you know, she loved her time up north and out west at Burke, and she's super handy. So whether or not eventually she comes back and it's something that she wants to take on, but I'm pretty lucky that our parents give us choice, and they just want us to be happy and healthy. That's all that they ask for, whether that's on the farm or it's not, whether it's in the company or it's outside of it, or just sitting on the sidelines supporting. They are very happy to support us in whatever that looks like. But I think that came through a lot of our younger years, but also having those conversations pretty early and being transparent. You know, I've got other friends whose parents have companies and they're like, oh, I've got no idea what mum and dad do at work. But for us, you know, mum and dad always shared the highs and the lows. You know, we understood things. We helped mum from very early ages, you know, helping on weekends after school or anything like that, helping reconcile receipts and understanding what that looks like and the different sorts of expenditures that are included in owning a business. So I think I'm pretty lucky in that regard. But for us, you know, clear communication plays such a big role in that. And like any succession planning discussion, you know, you can go to workshop after workshop. The biggest key message, I think, is the earlier you have that conversation, the easier it is to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. Brooke, what would your advice be to somebody who's integrating back into the family farming business and they're a bit concerned or they don't know where to start? What's your advice?
I think reach out to someone and get a mentor, get some external advice. Having someone that you can chat to and just having a third party who can look at it with an extra set of eyes, because like any family business, and like I said, you throw ag in the mix, there's just feelings left, right and center that can sometimes cloud your judgment, whether you know, I think you've got both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes you're feeling like you're not enough and you might not have a place, but at the same time in some enterprises, you know, you see someone come back and they suddenly assume they're going to be running it tomorrow, which is again not the case at all. Because, you know, when I first came back, I didn't know anything. I did not know boo. I was learning from dad every single day, and I still am. Like, that man teaches me more than I ever thought I would learn. So I think it's finding the balance, but sometimes you just need someone to look at it with an extra set of eyes, and sometimes it's giving you a bit of tough love. Get a third party and get the experts in, pay the big bucks and just get a consultant in to help you through that process. It's wonderful workshops. I know there's another one coming up in the Central West for succession planning with, oh my goodness, it's escaped me now. RDA is running one. And yeah, you can just head to so many different events. There's heaps of different podcasts, resources, etc. I think don't be scared of learning. Don't be scared of putting your hand up and just saying, I have no idea what I'm doing, because trust me, I've done that plenty of times over the year and I still do pretty regularly.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Brooke, you have your own podcast. It's over on Spotify. It is called Business with Brooke. If listeners are wanting to know more about you outside today's chat, or they want to DM you from something they've heard in today, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find my Instagram, which is business.withbrooke, which has an E on the end. And yeah, my Spotify podcast is called Business with Brooke, which is really exciting too. So that has a different range of career insights and chatting to industry professionals about their journey in industry, which is really nice. And if not, you can also check out our family page, Bralca, which is BRALCA. We're on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Or feel free to find me on LinkedIn. My name is just Brooke Watts on LinkedIn. So yeah, would love to chat to anyone.
Absolutely. And I also have an interview there with Brooke. It was one of the first that you rolled out. I'm not sure what episode that was, but yeah, go on and have a follow. And thank you so much, Brooke.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Ultimate Farm Wife. If today's chat has made you smile, nod, or feel a little bit more seen in this wild rural life of ours, share it with a mate, hit the follow button, and leave a 5-star review where you watch or listen to this podcast. It's the best way to keep growing this community and showing your support for the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. A big thank you to the crew behind the scenes who are helping keep this show on the rails. To our show editor, Krista DePathrath at the Rural Podcasting Network, and Lou and her team at the Administration Agency. And of course, to yourselves who tune in every week. Until next time, keep your hearts full, your boots dusty, and your sense of humour close. Before you go, if you've been loving these farm life chats, I'd love for you to join me over on my other podcast too. It's called Absolutely Fabulous, where we dive into agriculture beyond the headlines and bridging the urban-rural divide. We'll deep dive into big conversations in ag, from the challenges to the highlights and what's shaping our future. It's a space where honest stories, laughter, and a good dose of farm life real talk goes on. So make sure to head to the link in the show notes, subscribe to the Absolutely Fabulous, and I'll play the intro for you now.
Hi, welcome to Absolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are Absolutely Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.